Hello, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to Module 2 of this unit. So, again, this is Mr. Stidham, and welcome back. So this week, after covering the Reformation, we are going to talk about the scientific revolution. And this is a pretty big unit because not only do we talk about history, but we're also kind of blending science a little bit with it, too. So I guess you can kind of say this is a little bit of us crossing into different content areas. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, objectives for today. So, identify and explain the contributions of important thinkers of the scientific revolution. And then also explain how the scientific revolution weakened the Catholic Church. So, that's going to be the big one with that. So, the tasks and due dates. And I'll talk more about this at the end. So, pretty much take notes on the slideshow. We are talking content, not as much as last time, but still some important things to probably write down. And then you're going to have a few activities to do this week. You're going to have a web quest that is due Wednesday. And then you're going to have another Padlet post with 2 parts to it. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but we'll go ahead and get started. So, the scientific revolution is a big one because not only is it something that a lot of you have probably heard of before, but this really does challenge a lot of the older ways of Europe. Mostly because prior to this, people really based things on superstition or religious doctrine. So the fact that we have the scientific revolution is a big one because Europeans start trying to figure things out through logic and reason, not through hearsay or, traditional concepts. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, what is the scientific revolution? So it's essentially an event that takes place pretty much in the 16th and 17th centuries. And essentially, we're talking about philosophers, astronomers, and mathematicians who begin to make conclusions based on experimentation and observation instead of merely accepting traditional ideas. So in other words, instead of just kind of basing it up to old wives' tales or superstitions, or what people have generally just kind of said throughout the years, people start kind of looking around them and asking questions. Why is the grass green? Why does the sky show all these different dots moving and glowing? So people are very curious about what's around them. And instead of just kind of basing things on tradition, people start experimenting and they start observing what's around them. So we're talking about scientific method, so different ways of kind of doing things that are more based on logic and reason than just hearsay. Now the causes, you have a couple different causes. So obviously the ideas of the Renaissance. So obviously this is going to incorporate a lot of different ideas with the Renaissance. And I'll talk more about that here, especially humanism. You have the Reformation. So we talked about the Reformation last week, and essentially, the church is weakened. People are starting to kind of question churches, not only church's authority, but some of the ideas they have. So, as you'll kind of see as you start looking at people like Galileo, they're going to start having different ideas about how the world works. And it's actually going to contradict a lot of what the church kind of says, doctrinal-wise. And that's kind of where humanism comes in because, humanism is kind of focusing on people, on the human aspect of things. And one of the big things about the scientific revolution is that it's very secular. It doesn't involve religion. And that's something that really is going to run afoul of the church. And then, of course, you got new technology and ideas that really allow that. So the telescope, you have the idea of alchemy. You have a lot of different technology and ideas that start blending and kind of advancing that make it more possible to study things. So prior to the revolution, and again, I've kind of already said this, but to kind of make a point of it, most things in Europe were explained through superstition, local tradition, or church doctrine. If ideas were different or contradictory to what the church believed, it was usually deemed heresy or false beliefs. So that's kind of one way that the church kind of used its power or had a major influence on the Dark Age Europe. Now, with logic and reason, this changes. And this is kind of how the scientific revolution really challenges these older doctrines and institutions. Instead of kind of just basing it on religious aspects or hearsay, Europeans are using logic and reason. For example, the scientific method. This is the process of scientific experimentation. You kind of observe what's going on. You make a hypothesis, and then you experiment and come to a conclusion, and then you try it again. So, people start looking at our solar system and our planet, Galileo and our universe, specifically, Newton and the laws of physics. So you start having all these different ideas that really start to be based more on logic and reason and evidence instead of just what others have said. And again, that really does not roll with the church. And in a lot of ways, a lot of these findings are going to contradict what the church says, especially when you look at Galileo. Major impacts. So again, church continues losing authority and influence because of this. You start seeing more discoveries of new concepts and ideas about our world. People start kind of discovering really how our world works. What kind of things, such as laws, kind of start, guiding our world. Like, for example, Isaac Newton, you have laws of gravity. Those are things that really apply to how our world works. So you begin to use the use of logic and reasoning, which are kind of guides natural laws. And then this idea of logic and reasoning will actually start our next movement, or last movement, and that's going to be the Enlightenment. Now, for the rest of the week, a couple different things. So first off, you have a web quest about some of these big scientists. So essentially, you're going to be using the links in the document on the module in order to complete this web quest. And you'll need to kind of complete it by Wednesday, November 10th. Secondly, you'll also have another Padlet post. So it's very similar to the first one, but essentially you'll have to post two things. First, which scientists that you kind of learned about this week do you think had the bigger impact? And then how does the scientific revolution challenge these older doctrines and institutions in Europe? By the way, I've also provided a fun little OER activity with some other additional resources. But essentially, just a small little Kahoot on the scientific revolution, and it really kind of gives you some fun facts about some science topics. So that might be a fun thing to try out if you have anything else that you would like to do. And it's pretty fun, and you kind of learn a little bit about some interesting facts about this time period and about this movement. All right, so that's it for content-wise. If you have questions, again, please email me. I can't help you if I don't know you need help. And I will see you all next week. So have a good week, everybody.